I had been tinkering with the wooden model of the ship for 2 hours. The small parts wouldn't fit into place, and my glasses kept sliding down the tip of my nose. Sighing, I set the tweezers aside and looked out the window at the gray October sky. It had been almost 3 years since Iris had left, but the old house still seemed too empty without her. Rubbing my eyes, I rose from the chair and my knees groaned protestingly. 65 wasn't such an advanced age, but I had begun to feel every year of my life in recent years, especially when I was alone. My gaze fell on the hallway mirror. My gray hair hadn't known a haircut in a long time and was sticking out in all directions. The week-old stubble had already turned into a sloppy beard. A stretched sweater with a coffee stain and old housepants completed the look. Iris would scold me for looking like this. "You used to be so handsome, Monty," I heard her voice say. "And now you're an old, unkept stump," I mumbled back to my reflection. Walking into the kitchen, I turned on the kettle. On the table was a stack of bills I'd been putting off for a week. My civil engineer's pension was enough to live on, but after so many years of managing large projects, the bureaucratic routine was only irritating. The phone in my pocket vibrated. I frowned. Not many people had called me lately. Audrey's daughter usually texted and only called on special occasions. "Hi, Dad." Her voice sounded unnaturally cheerful. "How are you?" "I'm alive," I said. "Did something happen?" "Why does something have to happen?" There was a flicker of irritation in my daughter's voice. "I just wanted to know how you were," I snorted. "The last time you called was when you needed to pick up Iris's closet." There was an awkward pause. Finally, Audrey sighed. "Okay, you're right. We're having a family photo shoot next Saturday. A professional photographer, Pierce, wants to update the photos for his office and make Christmas cards at the same time. And you want me to be there?" I was surprised. "Of course you do, Dad. You're part of the family," he said in that artificially cheerful tone again. "We're taking pictures in Lawndale Park at 11 o'clock. Nothing formal, just, neat and family." "Family," I repeated. I hadn't seen my son-in-law in 6 months since my granddaughter's birthday. "Pierce says the pictures are very important to his new position in the company," Audrey continued. "He's been promoted to head the whole analytical department." "Congratulations," I said dryly. "Give him my best wishes." There was silence again. "Dad, you're coming, aren't you? Evelyn wants to see you very much." I softened at the mention of my granddaughter. "For Evelyn's sake, of course. I'll be there." "Good," Audrey exhaled with relief. "I'll see you Saturday then. And, Dad," she hesitated, "why don't you stop by the hairdresser's before the photo shoot?" I looked at my reflection in the glass closet door. "Maybe," I said evasively, and said goodbye. The rest of the day passed in the usual routine. I finished the model ship, watched a replay of the baseball game, heated up last night's dinner. But my thoughts kept returning to the upcoming photo shoot and my son-in-law. Pierce Campbell had always treated me with ill-concealed disdain. For a successful financial analyst with his impeccable suits and golf club membership, the retired engineer was a relic of the past, an inappropriate reminder of his wife's working-class roots. The doorbell rang around 4 in the afternoon. I raised my eyebrows in surprise. I wasn't expecting anyone. On the doorstep stood Evelyn, my 14-year-old granddaughter with a backpack over her shoulders and a wide smile. "Grandpa!" She hugged me tightly, ignoring my ragged appearance. "I came straight from school. Can I sit at your place?" I smiled, the first real smile of the day. "Sure, baby. Come on in. Do your parents know you're here?" Evelyn rolled her eyes. "I texted my mom. She's at a conference today. She'll be back late. And Dad," she shrugged. "He doesn't ask where I am if I'm doing my homework." She walked through the house, throwing off her backpack and jacket as she went. "Do you have anything to eat? I'm starving." "When are you not starving?" I grinned and headed for the kitchen. "I can make sandwiches." "Turkey and cheese?" my granddaughter asked hopefully. Turkey and cheese, I nodded. While I prepared the food, Evelyn sat in the kitchen, pulling her textbooks out of her backpack. Mom said you're coming to the photo shoot, she said casually. Yeah, she called today. Cool, Evelyn glowed. Dad wanted to go without you, but I insisted. I froze. You did? Evelyn bit her lip. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that. It's okay. I set a plate of sandwiches and a cup of tea in front of her. Your father and I have never really gotten along. He says you're disorganized, Evelyn said, as if she were quoting a phrase she'd heard often, and that you could do better with your education. Maybe he's right, I shrugged. But I've built bridges and buildings that thousands of people use. I'm happy with the way I've lived my life. Evelyn nodded, chewing on her sandwich. I know. I've seen your pictures of the sights. It's a lot cooler than sitting in an office all day and nagging everyone. I grinned. Don't say that about your dad. He works hard to make sure you and Mom have everything you need. We have everything we need. Evelyn rolled her eyes. And a lot of junk. Dad just likes to show off to his co-workers. She sipped her tea and looked at me over the cup. You know, he talks about his promotion every night now, and how important it is to maintain his image. That's why he started this stupid photo shoot. I watched my granddaughter with fondness. Clever beyond her years, she reminded me of Iris, just as sharp-tongued and observant. What do you think of the image? I asked with a smile. I think it's better to be real like you, she smiled back. I like that you don't care what other people think of you. I felt a prick of conscience. Actually, I didn't really care. It's just that after Iris died, a lot of things lost meaning. But seeing my son-in-law wrinkle his nose at the sight of my ragged clothes or unkempt beard was unpleasant. Are you doing your homework? I changed the subject. Uh-huh. Evelyn opened her textbook. Algebra. I hate quadratic equations. Let me help you. I pulled my chair closer. I was a pretty good engineer, you know. We spent a few hours together solving problems, then playing old board games I'd kept from Audrey's childhood. Evelyn talked about school, about her friends, about the music she listened to. It was the most enjoyable hours I'd had in weeks. At the beginning of 8, Evelyn's cell phone rang. It's Mom, the girl sighed and answered. Yes, I'm at Grandpa's. Yes, I did. Okay, I'll be there in 20 minutes. She hung up the phone and started packing. I should get home. Mom finished the conference early. I'll drive you, I offered. No, the bus goes straight from here, Evelyn shook her head. Besides, she hesitated. Dad might be home. I get it. Pierce wouldn't be happy to see me. Okay. I walked my granddaughter to the door. Come back whenever you want. Evelyn hugged me. I will. And don't forget Saturday. I want you to be in the pictures with me. After my granddaughter left, the house was silent again. I sat in my chair looking at the unfinished model of the ship and thought about the upcoming photo shoot. I imagined how Pierce would cringe at the sight of my old clothes and unkempt beard, how Audrey would avert her eyes in embarrassment. Maybe I should have said no, but then I wouldn't get to see Evelyn. And what would my granddaughter think if I didn't show up after my promise? I stood up and looked at myself in the mirror again. Indeed, I didn't look very presentable. For Evelyn's sake, I could clean myself up. The thought of a haircut flashed through my mind, but I dismissed it. After all, I wasn't going to change for my son-in-law. If they cared so much about appearance, let them accept me as I was. I'd spend a few hours in their company for my granddaughter's sake, but I wasn't going to conform to their ideas of proper appearance. I opened my closet, going through my clothes. Could I at least find a cleaner shirt? But most of the shirts hung in shapeless sacks. I'd lost weight since Iris died. The pants were getting big, too. The only decent suit I'd worn to my wife's funeral was covered in dust. I closed the closet. It was decided. I'd wear what I usually wear. After all, it's just one photo shoot. I'd endure a few nasty looks for the chance to be with Evelyn. The phone vibrated again. This time a message from my daughter. Thanks for practicing with Evelyn. She's so excited for you to come on Saturday. Don't forget 11 a.m., Lawndale Park. I smiled. For my granddaughter's sake, I was willing to tolerate even the company of Pierce Campbell. The rest of the week passed in the usual routine. Evelyn stopped by again on Thursday and spoke enthusiastically about a school project. On Friday evening, Audrey called to remind her of the meeting. I could hear the tension in her voice. "Dad, you're gonna, clean up, right?" she asked gently. I felt annoyed. "I'm not homeless, Audrey. I know how to dress." "Of course," she agreed quickly. "It's just that Pierce takes these pictures very seriously. Everyone in his company shows family photos, and he wants to, you know, make an impression," I finished for her. "Don't worry, I won't embarrass your perfect family." "Dad, that's not what I meant." "I'll see you tomorrow, Audrey." I ended the call and hung up. As I fell asleep, I thought about tomorrow with worry. Something told me that things would not go as smoothly as I would like. I woke up on the day of the photo shoot with a heavy feeling in my chest. Sleep slipped away reluctantly, leaving behind a vague uneasiness. Outside the window, a fine rain drummed, promising a cloudy morning. Typical fall weather for Brookline. The clock read 8. There were 3 hours left before the meeting, just enough time to take my time getting ready. I brewed myself a strong cup of coffee and sat by the window, watching the drops dripping down the glass. The rain was slowing down, and the sun was trying to break through the clouds. At least I should be lucky with the weather. I skipped breakfast. I had no appetite. Instead, I stood in front of the bathroom mirror for a long time, critically assessing my reflection. My beard hadn't gotten neater overnight, and the wrinkles hadn't gone away. The age spots on my arm stood out vividly against my pale skin. The inexorable signs of old age that I had come to terms with, but which would surely irritate my son-in-law. I brushed my teeth and even used the aftershave balm that had been gathering dust on the shelf for years. The smell was familiar. Iris had given this bottle to me for my 60th birthday. I could almost hear her voice. "You gave up too soon, Monty. Old age is a state of mind, not a state of body." From my closet, I pulled out the most decent pants I could find, navy blue, barely worn at the knees, and a light blue long-sleeve shirt. It hung on me like a bag, but it was clean and ironed. I added a sweater on top, dark green with a patch at the elbow, but probably the most decent of all my sweaters. Standard retiree kit, nothing special. That thought brought a chuckle. I wondered what Pierce would wear if he were me. Probably something cashmere with a brand name label. Well, everyone has their priorities. I left the house at 10:30. The rain had stopped, but the sidewalks were still wet and the air was still fresh and cool. I decided to walk to Lawndale Park, which was only a 20-minute walk away. The walk helped clear my head and calm my nerves. The park was already filled with people, despite the early hour and the recent rain. Young moms with strollers, joggers, dog walkers, a common Saturday sight. I walked slowly down the center avenue looking for my family. They found themselves near a large oak tree by the pond, the perfect spot for a photo shoot. I spotted them from afar. Audrey in a beige coat, Evelyn in a bright red jacket, and Pierce in a dark cashmere coat, just as I'd expected. A man with a camera, apparently a photographer, was fidgeting next to them. I took a deep breath and headed toward them. Evelyn saw me first and waved happily. "Grandpa, you're here!" She ran up and hugged me. I could feel the tension receding a little. At least one person was genuinely happy to see me. "Of course I came," I smiled. "I promised." We walked over to the others together. Audrey smiled. "Hi, Dad. You're just in time. We're just getting started." She looked tense, her gaze sliding quickly over my clothes, and I noticed a fleeting disappointment. Yeah, I hadn't lived up to her expectations of tidying up. Pierce was standing a little to the side, talking to the photographer. When he heard our voices, he turned around and his face changed instantly. The smile meant for the photographer was replaced by a sour grimace. "Monty," he nodded dryly. Not a hello, not a nice to see you, just an acknowledgement of my presence. "Pierce," I answered just as dryly. The photographer, a young guy with a trendy haircut and jeans that looked more expensive than all my clothes, extended his hand in a friendly manner. "Hello, I'm Noah. You must be Audrey's father." "That's right," I shook his hand. "Monty Thornton." "Good." Noah nodded vigorously. "We were just thinking about composition. I plan to do some group shots by the tree, then maybe by the water and some individual portraits." Pierce cleared his throat. "Noah, can I talk to you for a minute?" He took the photographer aside and they started talking softly about something. I saw Pierce frown and shake his head. Noah looked puzzled but nodded. Audrey came over to me. "Dad, you could at least shave," she said quietly. "I thought you said nothing formal," I replied. "Yeah, but—" She trailed off, glancing at Pierce, who was approaching. My brother-in-law looked determined and annoyed at the same time. He stopped in front of us, folding his arms across his chest. "Monty, I thought Audrey explained the importance of those pictures." "She said family photo shoot," I replied, feeling myself starting to get annoyed. "I'm here. I'm part of the family." "Yeah, but—" He looked me over from head to toe. "Like this? These pictures will hang in my office. My co-workers will see them. My clients will see them." "So?" I was starting to see where he was going with this, but I wanted him to say it out loud. Pierce sighed as if he were explaining the obvious to a child. "Appearance is important, Monty. First impression. Image. These pictures are supposed to show a successful, prosperous family. And I don't fit that image?" I felt anger boiling up inside me. "Honestly, no," Pierce cut him off. "You look—" He hesitated, searching for words. "How?" I crossed my arms over my chest, looking him straight in the eye. "Like an old beggar," he finally blurted out. "I don't want to see an old beggar in the family photos." There was a heavy silence. I saw Audrey turn pale and Evelyn's eyes widened with shock. "Pierce!" Audrey exclaimed. "What?" He spread his hands. "It's true. Look at him, Audrey. Those ragged clothes, that unkempt beard. He looks like he's living on welfare. That's not the image I want to project in the office." "Papa!" Evelyn stepped forward, her face red with anger. "How can you say that? Grandpa's not a beggar." "Quiet, Evelyn," Pierce raised his hand. "The grown-ups are talking. But it isn't true." The girl wouldn't give up. "Grandpa was an engineer. He built real buildings. He's not some beggar." "Evelyn," I put my hand on her shoulder. "It's all right." But I was seething inside. I turned to Pierce. "So it's more important to you how I look than who I am?" "For these pictures, yes," he said without a trace of embarrassment. "It's business, Monty. It's nothing personal." "It's nothing personal," I repeated, feeling the bitterness in my mouth. "I'm just not good enough for your precious pictures. Don't be so dramatic. If you had tried harder, we wouldn't be in this situation." I looked at Audrey, expecting her to intervene, to say something in my defense. But she stood there, eyes downcast, clearly embarrassed but not ready to confront her husband. "Dad," she finally said quietly, "maybe some other time. When we take pictures just for ourselves?" Her words were like a slap in the face. My own daughter was asking me to leave so as not to ruin their perfect family photos. "I get it," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I don't want to cause trouble." "Grandpa, no!" Evelyn grabbed my arm. "Stay! I want to take pictures with you." I gently released my hand. "Some other time, little girl, I promise." Pierce looked relieved. "A sensible decision, Monty. Thanks for understanding." I didn't answer. I had nothing to say to the man. I turned to leave, but Evelyn grabbed me tightly around the waist. "No, if Grandpa's leaving, I'm leaving too." "Evelyn," Pierce said sharply, "don't make a scene." "You're making a scene," she screamed, and I saw tears in her eyes. "You hurt Grandpa. You called him a beggar." "Evelyn," Audrey walked over to her daughter, "please calm down. People are watching." And indeed, a few passers-by slowed down, watching our family drama with interest. "Let them watch." Evelyn didn't give up. "Let everyone know what a daddy is like. That's enough." Pierce grabbed his daughter's shoulder. "Either you stop your tantrum immediately, or we're going home and you'll be without a phone for a week." Evelyn's eyes flashed, but she kept quiet. I could see her shaking with restrained emotion. "I'll go," I said, releasing myself from her embrace. "It's okay, Evelyn. I'll see you later." "I'm sorry, Dad," Audrey mumbled, not looking me in the eye. I nodded and turned to leave. The last thing I heard was Pierce's voice addressing the photographer. "Okay, Noah, let's get started. I think near the oak tree would be a great first shot." I walked through the park, feeling every step difficult. A storm of emotions raged inside me: humiliation, anger, frustration. It wasn't Pierce's behavior that hurt me the most. I didn't expect anything else from him, but Audrey's acquiescence. My daughter, my flesh and blood, did not stand up for me. She allowed her husband to insult me and chase me away like a stray dog. "Old beggar." The words echoed in my head. Is that really how they see me? The man who spent 35 years designing buildings and bridges, raising a daughter, making a home. Had I become a pathetic shadow that I was ashamed to show my coworkers? I reached the nearest bench and sank down heavily on it. My hands were shaking, whether from the cold or from the humiliation I had suffered. An old woman walking her dog gave me a sympathetic look. I must have looked like a lost old man from the outside. But something inside me began to change. The initial shock and resentment gradually gave way to cold determination. I wasn't going to sit around feeling sorry for myself. I wasn't going to cry because my pompous son-in-law thought I was unworthy of his precious pictures. "You gave up too soon, Monty." Iris's voice rang in my head again. And she was right. After she died, I let myself sink. Not physically, I still took care of my health and kept the house in order, but emotionally, I gave up. I accepted the role of a lonely old man living in the past. I stopped fighting. But now, sitting on this bench, I felt something long forgotten in me awaken: stubbornness, pride, a desire to prove my worth. If Pierce thinks I'm an old beggar, I'm going to show him how wrong he is. I pulled out my cell phone and dialed a number. "Keith? It's Monty. Are you busy tonight?" Keith Holloway, my neighbor and friend, didn't answer right away. "Not really. I was going to work in the garden if the rain doesn't come back." "Why?" "I need advice," I said, "and maybe some help." "Something wrong?" Keith sounded worried. "Yes," I replied. "I just got kicked out of a family photo shoot for looking like an old beggar." Keith whistled. "Your brother-in-law? That's the one." "I'll be there in 20 minutes, Keith said. "I've got some beer left over from last night's barbecue." I smiled. "Thanks, buddy." Putting my phone in my pocket, I got up from the bench. For the first time in a long time, I felt a surge of energy and determination. I wasn't going to cry or complain. Instead, I was starting to think about a plan that would show Pierce Campbell that the old engineer hadn't written himself off yet. I headed home, where Keith and the first drafts of a revenge plan that promised to change everything were waiting for me. Keith was already waiting for me on the porch as I approached the house. The 60-year-old landscaping business owner had been my neighbor and friend for 15 years. Unlike me, he looked after himself, always trim, with a neatly trimmed beard and graying hair and wearing simple but quality clothes. "You look like hell, Monty," he said, handing me a bottle of beer. I just grunted as I unlocked the door. "Come on in. I don't want to talk about my family drama on the porch." We settled into the living room. I talked briefly about what had happened in the park, not hiding my bitterness. "Old beggar," Keith shook his head. "Your son-in-law has always been a snob, but this is too much even for him." "It's not so much about him." I sipped my beer. "He's predictable." What hurt me more was Audrey's silence. Didn't even try to object. "What are you going to do?" Keith asked. "Stop communicating?" I looked thoughtfully at the bottle in my hand. "No, that would only hurt Evelyn. She's the one who stood up for me." I set the bottle on the table. "I have another idea." Keith leaned forward interestedly. "Go ahead." "I want to teach them a lesson," I said slowly. "To show them that looks aren't everything, that there may be more behind the old beggar." "And how are you going to do that?" Keith asked. "That's where I need your help," I said, turning my hand around the room. "Look at this house. What do you see?" Keith looked at the worn furniture, the old wallpaper, the bookshelves littered with model ships and technical magazines. "A house that needs updating," he answered honestly. "But what?" He paused when he realized. "You want to remodel everything." "Exactly," I nodded. "If Pierce thinks I'm a pauper because of my looks, I'm going to show him that I can look as good as he does, and live as well." "Sounds like a costly endeavor," Keith said cautiously. I grinned. "I've been an engineer for 35 years, Keith. I have savings. I just didn't see the point of spending it. Until today." Keith rubbed his chin thoughtfully. "Where do we start?" "A plan." I stood up and pulled a blank sheet of paper out of my desk drawer. "First, we'll figure out what needs to be done to the house. Then we'll work on my appearance." We spent the next 2 hours making a detailed plan for the transformation. We ended up with an impressive list of tasks. For the house: new furniture for the living room and kitchen, modern appliances, bathroom renovations, fresh paint for the walls, new lighting, landscaping the yard. Keith volunteered to help personally. For me: a full closet of quality clothes, professional haircut and beard grooming, new glasses, watches, and other accessories. "That's all great, Monty," said Keith, studying the list. "But how are you going to do it all in a hurry? These things usually take months." I smiled. "I have connections. Don't forget I've managed construction projects. I know people who know people." "How much are you willing to spend on this?" Keith asked. I thought for a moment. "Enough to impress, but not so much that it's reckless. Say, about as much as Pierce spends on his closet and golf membership in a year." Keith whistled. "A lot." "It's worth it," I said firmly. "This isn't just revenge. It's, an awakening. For me, too." My friend nodded understandingly. "After Iris, it's like you've been frozen in time, Monty. Maybe this is just what you need." I nodded silently. Iris. She would support me, I knew that. She always said that life should be lived fully until the last day. "So," Keith clapped his hands together, "where do we start?" "Calls." I pulled out my phone. Lots of calls. The next few days were a whirlwind of activity. I contacted Tom Harrison, a former colleague of mine who now ran a small construction company. He was happy to hear from me and, after hearing about my project, offered a crew of his best workers. "For you, Monty, we'll do it in the best possible way and in the shortest possible time," he assured me. Keith enlisted 2 of his employees to work on the yard and help me select new furniture. Together we visited several stores where I chose a modern sofa, chairs, and dining set. All of the furniture was not screamingly expensive, but quality and stylish. For my exterior transformation, I went to a fashion salon that Keith's wife recommended. Specialists enthusiastically took on my appearance. Hairdresser Miguel suggested not just trimming my beard, but a complete style change. "You have great facial features, Mr. Thornton," he said. "We'll make you look like that actor. What's his name?" "Jeff Bridges, only more sophisticated." I agreed, though I doubted the resemblance to the Hollywood actor. But the result was beyond my expectations. From the mirror, I was looking at a trim, gray-haired man with a neat, short beard and a fresh, rested face. The next stop was a men's clothing store, where a consultant helped me pick out several sets of clothes: casual, business, and even one suit for special occasions. Everything fit perfectly after some minor adjustments. On the evening of the fourth day after the incident in the park, I stood in the middle of my transformed living room, unable to believe my eyes. Tom's crew had worked with incredible speed. The walls had been repainted a warm gray, the old leak-stained ceiling replaced with a new one with modern light fixtures. The shabby carpet gave way to hardwood flooring. New furniture, tastefully arranged, created an atmosphere of coziness and elegance. The kitchen was also transformed. New cabinets, artificial stone countertops, modern appliances. Everything looked stylish and functional. The bathroom turned into a small spa with a large shower and heated floor. "Are you happy with it?" Keith asked, standing in the doorway. I turned to him with a smile. "More than satisfied. It's amazing." "And it didn't cost as much as it could have," he said, "thanks to your connections and my discounts." I nodded. I just had to figure out how and when to show it to Pierce and Audrey. "I have an idea," Keith said. "Have a dinner party. Invite them here." "Dinner?" I thought about it. Not bad, but I'm a terrible cook. "There's a caterer for that," Keith winked. "My wife knows a great company." "You think of everything," I grinned. "That's what friends are for." He clapped me on the shoulder. "By the way, do you think they got the pictures from that shoot yet?" "They probably have." I felt a pang of irritation at the memory of the park. It had been almost 5 days. "I wonder how Evelyn is doing," Keith said thoughtfully. "She was very upset, wasn't she?" "I called her yesterday," I said. "She's fine, but she's still mad at her parents, especially her father. Did you tell her about your plan?" I shook my head. "No. I want it to be a surprise for everyone." Meanwhile, the atmosphere at the Campbell house was far from happy. I found out later from Evelyn, but I can imagine how it went. Pierce received the pictures on the 3rd day after the shoot and was very pleased. He was looking at them in his home office when Audrey brought him a cup of coffee. "They turned out great, didn't they?" he asked, showing her the pictures on the computer screen. "The background is perfect. Everyone looks great. I think I'll put this picture on my desk." He pointed to the picture of the 3 of them standing by the oak tree, smiling at the camera. Audrey nodded silently, but her face showed concern. "What's wrong?" Pierce asked, noticing her mood. "Nothing," she answered quickly. "The pictures are really good." "But?" He raised an eyebrow. Audrey sighed. "I feel bad about what happened with Dad. Maybe we were too harsh." Pierce brushed it off. "Come on, Audrey. He's a grown man. If he'd taken a little more care of his appearance, he'd be fine." "It was still rude," she insisted. "Did you see how upset Evelyn was?" "She's a teenager," Pierce snorted. "They have drama about everything all the time. In a couple days, she'd forget about it. But Evelyn hadn't. She defiantly ignored her father at dinner, answering one-wordedly and only when absolutely necessary. When Pierce showed her the pictures, she didn't even look at them. "Evelyn, stop sulking," Pierce said. "Look how good the pictures are." "They're incomplete," the girl said. "There's no grandfather in them." "Evelyn." "You hurt him," she continued. "Both of you. You said terrible things, and Mommy didn't even stand up for him." Audrey lowered her eyes guiltily. "Honey, I'll talk to Grandpa. I'll apologize for both of us." "You apologize for yourself," Pierce said. "I didn't do anything wrong. I just told the truth." "The truth?" Evelyn jumped up from the table. "You called Grandpa a beggar. That's a lie, and it was cruel." "Sit down," Pierce said sternly. "I won't tolerate that tone. And I won't tolerate you talking about my grandfather like that." Evelyn raised her voice. "He's 100 times better than you. He built real things, not just shuffling papers in an office." "Evelyn," Audrey exclaimed, "apologize to your father immediately." "I won't." The girl grabbed her plate and headed for the door. "I'll eat in my room. I don't want to sit at the same table with a man who hurts old people." After she left, Pierce looked at his wife gloomily. "You see what you've done with your doubts? Now she's completely out of control." "Me?" Audrey was indignant. "You insulted my father." "I just said what you thought," he retorted. Don't pretend you weren't ashamed of the way he looked. Audrey couldn't find anything to say because deep down she knew Pierce was right. She did feel bad about her father's unkempt appearance, but still, somewhere inside, a sense of guilt gnawed at her. She had betrayed her own man for the sake of preserving the appearance of a perfect family. That night, Pierce slept in the guest bedroom, and Evelyn didn't speak to her parents until the next morning. The next day, Audrey called me, but I purposely didn't answer. I wasn't ready to talk. I didn't want my voice or words to give away my plans. Instead, I sent her a quick text. It's okay. Talk to you later. I wanted her guilt to build up a bit. It sounds cruel, but sometimes people need to realize the consequences of their actions to truly learn a lesson. Meanwhile, the work on my house was coming to a close. The yard was transformed thanks to Keith's team. A manicured lawn, new garden paths, neat shrubs, and even a small fountain. The outside of the house looked fresh from the paint job, too. Inside, everything shone with newness. My ship's models, which had cluttered the shelves, were now displayed in glass cases, transformed from junk to an elegant collection. Books were neatly arranged, old magazines put away, and there were a few new paintings on the walls, the seascapes I'd always loved. My bedroom had changed too. A new bed with a comfortable mattress, a built-in closet for an updated closet, bedside lamps with warm light. Everything was stylish, functional, and not at all like the dwelling of an old beggar. When the main work was done, I sat in the new chair by the fireplace and dialed my daughter's number. "Dad!" I could hear the relief in her voice. "I've been trying to call you." "Sorry, I've been busy," I answered calmly. "What's up?" I'm so sorry about what happened at the park," she began. "Pierce shouldn't have said those things." "But he did," I pointed out. "And you didn't object." Audrey sighed. "I know. I did a terrible thing. I'm sorry, please." "I'm not angry, Audrey," I said. And it was true. Anger had long ago given way to determination. "In fact, I want to take you to dinner." "Dinner?" I could hear the surprise in her voice. "Yes, this Saturday. You, Pierce, and Evelyn. At my house." Are you sure?" she asked uncertainly. "After everything that's happened?" "Absolutely," I answered firmly. "I think we need to spend time together, as a family." "Okay," Audrey agreed. "What time?" 6 o'clock at night, I said. "And Audrey, tell Pierce I don't hold it against him." After the conversation, I leaned back in my chair with a smile. Everything was ready for the final act of my plan. I imagined their faces when they saw my transformed house and myself. It wouldn't just be revenge. It would be a lesson they wouldn't soon forget. Keith stopped by tonight to go over the final details. "Are you sure you want to go all the way?" he asked, looking at my new closet. "It all seems a little ostentatious." I nodded. "That's exactly how it should be. Pierce appreciates a little glamour. Well, I'll show him the glamour, and then we'll talk about what's really important." "And what's that?" Keith asked. "Respect," I answered simply. "Respect not for how you look or how much money you can spend, but for who you are." Keith nodded thoughtfully. "You know, Monty, this new determination suits you. It's like you've been revitalized." I smiled. Maybe that's exactly what I needed. A kick from a smug son-in-law to remember who I am. We discussed the menu for dinner, which I had ordered from a catering company recommended by Keith's wife. I chose gourmet but not overly pretentious dishes. I wanted to impress but not look like I was trying too hard. There were only 2 days left until Saturday. 2 days until the Campbell family would discover that the old beggar could teach them a lesson in style and dignity that they would not soon forget. The 2 weeks flew by unnoticed. Each day was filled with the worries of completing the transformation of the house and myself. I visited a few more clothing stores, chose new glasses with fancy frames, even bought an expensive watch, for the first time in 20 years. I freshened up my haircut the day before dinner to look flawless. My house was unrecognizable. Modern furniture, fresh paint, new appliances, everything looked stylish and expensive, though I was careful not to go overboard. I wanted to give the impression of taste and affluence, not gaudy luxury. After all, I wasn't going to be a copy of Pierce. That evening, an hour before the guests arrived, I walked around the house one more time, checking every detail. In the dining room, the table was set with a snow-white tablecloth, the china plates shining, the crystal glasses catching the light of the new lamps. The service was impeccable. I even found Iris's antique silver candlesticks that had been gathering dust in the pantry for years. The catering team arrived right on time. The chef and his assistants quickly and professionally set up in my new kitchen and began preparing the food. I chose a menu that was sophisticated but not too fancy. Asparagus cream soup, steaks with red wine sauce, potato gratin, and tiramisu for dessert. A bottle of good California wine was already breathing in the decanter. At exactly 5:45, I went up to the bedroom to change. I chose a navy blue blazer, light blue shirt, and gray slacks, all tailored to fit perfectly. New shoes made of soft leather completed the look. I tied a silk tie in muted colors, not too formal but tasteful. Looking at myself in the mirror, I barely recognized my own reflection. In front of me stood a trim, elegant man, whom no one would dare to call an old beggar. His gray hair was neatly styled, his beard trimmed and shaped in such a way that it gave his face a noble look rather than sloppiness. New, thin-rimmed glasses emphasized the look, and the watch on his wrist added a touch of refined luxury. "What would you say, Iris?" I asked quietly to the empty room. I thought I heard her laugh and say, "I told you you were handsome, Monty." The doorbell rang at 6 sharp. I took a deep breath, squared my shoulders, and walked downstairs. As I opened the door, I watched the guests' reactions with amusement. Audrey froze with her mouth open. Pierce frowned as if he couldn't believe his eyes, and Evelyn shrieked with delight. "Grandpa! Wow! Good evening!" I smiled. "Come in, please." They crossed the threshold, and now all three of them were looking around in amazement. Pierce looked especially comical, his eyes wide and his jaw slack. "Dad, what happened?" Audrey finally squeezed out. "Just a little remodeling," I said nonchalantly. "It was about time we had a new interior. Come into the living room. I've opened a nice wine." I led them through the hallway, enjoying their stunned looks. The living room was even more impressive. Soft light, modern furniture, paintings in stylish frames, my model ships in elegant display cases. "It's incredible," Audrey murmured, turning slowly and looking around the room. "When did you do all this?" Pierce asked, obviously trying to hide his shock. "In the last 2 weeks," I answered, pouring wine into glasses. "I've had some good experts." "That's so cool, Grandpa." Evelyn plopped down on the new couch. "It's like a design magazine in here now." I handed glasses to the adults and juice to Evelyn. "Here's to a family reunion," I proposed a toast. We clinked glasses, and I noticed Pierce sneaking glances at the label on the bottle of wine, obviously assessing the value. "Dinner's almost ready," I said. "I hope you're hungry." "Dad." Audrey shook her head, still not believing her eyes. "I don't understand. All of this," she looked around the room, "this cost a fortune." "Not as much as you think," I smiled. "I had connections in the construction business, remember? A lot of people still remember old Monty Thornton." "But why?" She looked genuinely puzzled. "You've never been interested in design or fashion." I took a sip of wine before answering. "Let's just say recent events have made me reassess some priorities." Pierce tensed, clearly aware of the events in question. Evelyn gave her father a meaningful look. "Please come to the table," I said, pointing to the dining room. "Let's not keep the chef waiting." "Chef?" Pierce asked, and I was pleased to note the note of envy in his voice. "Yes, I've hired a caterer for tonight," I said casually. I'm not much of a cook myself, as you know. The dining room was just as impressive as the living room. Evelyn gasped in admiration when she saw the setting. It was like a restaurant, she exclaimed. We took our seats at the table and the chef personally presented the first course, asparagus cream soup with truffle oil. As he served the plates, he politely explained the intricacies of the preparation, and I watched Pierce's reaction with amusement. My brother-in-law was obviously trying to keep a cool demeanor, but it was obvious that he was impressed. So, I began the casual conversation. How are you doing? How's work, Pierce? It's good, he replied, stammering a little. The new project is going well. Glad to hear it, I nodded. And you, Audrey? How's your HR department? Dad, she put the spoon away, can we stop pretending like nothing happened? I'm still in shock from the whole thing. What's the big deal? I asked innocently. Can't a person update their home and closet? Of course they can, she agreed. But not in 2 weeks, and not so drastically. I shrugged. I decided it was time for a change. By the way, Evelyn, how'd you do on your history project? It was great. My granddaughter rejoiced. I got an A, and I also joined the theater class. That's great, I smiled. I'm sure you'll shine on stage. The conversation was relaxed, thanks mostly to Evelyn, who talked enthusiastically about school. Audrey still looked puzzled, and Pierce seemed tense, though he tried not to show it. After the soup, the main course was served, steaks with red wine sauce and potato gratin. The dish looked and smelled delicious. Are you seriously pretending you don't understand the reason for all this? Pierce asked suddenly, cutting into the steak. Audrey threw a warning glance at him, but it was too late. What are you talking about, Pierce? I asked calmly. This performance, he said, circling the room. New house, new clothes, new boss. It was clearly a reaction to what I'd said in the park. Dad, Audrey intervened, we're really sorry about that day. I should have stood up for you. And I'm not sorry, Pierce said suddenly. I was right. Look at him now, he pointed at me with his fork. Isn't it better? Isn't it more solid? You both know I'm right. Pierce, Audrey exclaimed. Daddy, Evelyn exclaimed at the same time. I held up my hand, calling for calm. It's all right. Pierce is entitled to his opinion. And you know what? He's right about something. All three of them stared at me in surprise. I've really let myself go since Iris died, I continued. Didn't keep up appearances, didn't update the house, but not because I couldn't afford it. I put the instruments aside and looked directly at Pierce. You see, Pierce, I was never an old beggar. I was a civil engineer for 35 years, managed big projects, made good investments. I always had the funds to update my home or closet. I just didn't see the need for it. Then why all this now? He asked, circling the dining room. To teach a lesson, I answered calmly. For you, for Audrey, and maybe even for myself. What kind of lesson? Pierce frowned. That looks can be deceiving. I sipped my wine. That you can't judge a man by his clothes or his house. That respect should be shown to everyone, regardless of their appearance or status. So is this revenge? Pierce asked, irritation in his voice. No, I shook my head. It's a demonstration. I wanted to show that I could look as good as you if I wanted to, that my house could be as stylish as yours. But most importantly, I wanted you to understand that none of this, I circled the room, defines my worth as a person. There was silence. Evelyn looked at me with admiration, Audrey with surprise and something akin to shame, and Pierce looked thoughtful. But you know what the best part is? I continued after a pause. I like the change. It's nice to take care of myself again, to renew my surroundings. Iris always said I gave up too soon. She was right. So this isn't just to prove something to us? Audrey asked quietly. It wasn't just that, I smiled. It was the push I needed. I was stuck in the past, stopped moving forward. Now I'm ready for a new phase." "A new phase?" she interjected. I paused, taking another sip of wine. It was time for the final chord. "I've decided to sell the house," I announced. "What?" Audrey exclaimed. "Why? You've put so much into the renovations." "That's why it's a good time to sell," I shrugged. "The house has never been worth as much as it is now. Besides, it's too big for one person." "But where will you move to?" Evelyn asked with concern in her voice. "I've got an apartment in downtown Brookline," I answered. "It's modern, in a new complex, with a view of the park and all the amenities." "Park Plaza?" Pierce asked, and I saw his eyebrows go up. "Exactly," I nodded. "Do you know the place?" "Sure," Pierce said slowly. "It's one of the most expensive apartment complexes in the city." "Really?" I pretended to be surprised. "I just like the view, and the fact that there are good restaurants nearby." "Grandpa, are you serious?" Evelyn looked shocked. "Are you selling our old house?" "I'm afraid so," I smiled at her. "But don't worry, the new apartment will have a room for you. You'll be able to stay overnight whenever you want." "But I love this house," she said sadly. "There are so many memories here." "Memories will stay with us no matter where we live," I replied softly. "Besides, I thought it would be better to move to a place more in keeping with, how did Pierce put it? Oh, yes, the family image." Pierce choked on his wine. "Monty, listen," he began after he coughed. "About that day in the park, I overreacted. I shouldn't have said those things." "Don't apologize, Pierce." I held up my hand. "You just said what you thought, and like I said, you were right about something. I did go down, but that's all changed now, and I'm grateful to you for the encouragement." Audrey looked confused. "Dad, you don't have to move. If this is about what happened—" "It's not just that," I assured her. "I need a change, new surroundings, new opportunities. I've been living in the past for too long." The chef appeared to clear the plates and serve dessert, an exquisite tiramisu with berries and mint. We ate in silence, each immersed in our own thoughts. "When do you plan to move?" Audrey finally asked. "In a month or so," I answered. "As soon as I buy a new apartment and find a buyer for the house, I already have a few interested parties." "So soon?" She was surprised. I nodded. "There's no point in putting it off. I'd already been standing still for too long." After dessert, we moved back into the living room for coffee. Pierce still looked thoughtful, occasionally casting assessing glances at me. I realized he was reconsidering his opinion of me, and it gave me a quiet satisfaction. "Grandfather, may I see the rest of the house?" Evelyn asked. "I want to see what else has changed." "Of course," I smiled. "Would you like a tour?" We walked around the house. I showed them the updated kitchen with modern appliances, the bathroom with heated floors, my bedroom with new furniture. All the rooms had the same style, sleek, modern, but not flashy. "I can't believe it's the same house." Audrey shook her head as we returned to the living room. "And the same person," Pierce added quietly, looking at me. "On the outside, yes," I agreed. "But inside, I'm still the same Monty Thornton. It was just that now I'd decided it was time to move on." The evening was coming to an end. As they were about to leave, Pierce suddenly held out his hand to me. "I underestimated you, Monty. I apologize." I shook his hand. "Accepted, Pierce. I hope we can start with a clean slate." Audrey hugged me goodbye. "You look happier, Dad. Even if this whole thing started out as a lesson for us, I'm glad you found your purpose again." "Thank you, honey." I hugged her back. "Sometimes we all need a push to move on." Evelyn hugged me tightly. "You're the coolest grandpa in the world," she whispered in my ear. "You surprised them so much." I winked at her. "That was a good lesson, wasn't it?" "The best," she grinned. "But I'm still going to miss this house." "We'll make new memories," I promised. "In a new place." When I closed the door behind them, I felt strangely relieved. The plan had worked even better than I'd expected. Not only had I made Pierce and Audrey reconsider how they felt about me, but I found myself ready for a change. I walked to the living room and sat in my new chair, looking at Iris's picture on the wall, the only thing I hadn't changed. "You'd be proud of me today," I said quietly. I had finally decided to live, not just exist. The decision to sell the house and move came to me spontaneously, in the midst of renovations. I really thought it was time to move on, to put the past behind me. A new apartment downtown, new surroundings, new opportunities. It all suddenly seemed incredibly appealing. Keith was right. It was like I was alive. And for that, I was grateful, even to Pierce and his cruel words. Sometimes we need the bitter truth to wake up and start changing. A week passed after that memorable dinner. I was sitting in a realtor's office going over the paperwork for an apartment in Park Plaza. The apartment complex was indeed one of the most prestigious in Brookline, with 24-hour security, a pool, and spa. The apartment I chose was on the 12th floor and had a spectacular view of the city park. "Mr. Thornton, all you have to do is sign here and here." The realtor, a young woman in a strict suit, pointed to the places to sign. "And make a down payment." I looked at the number on the contract. The amount was impressive, but I could afford it. Over the years, I'd made some good investments that were now generating a steady income to supplement my pension. "I'd like to take a couple of days to think about it," I said. "It's a big decision." "Of course," she nodded understandingly. "But I have to warn you that there are other potential buyers for this apartment." "I understand the risk," I smiled. "But I'd rather take my time." I left the realtor's office and went to a small cafe nearby. I wanted to think about the situation. Did I really want to move, or was this just part of my plan to rebuild my self-esteem? The cafe was quiet. I ordered a coffee and sat by the window, watching the passers-by. The phone in my pocket vibrated. Pierce was calling. It was unexpected. "Pierce," I answered with a slight surprise in my voice. "To what do I owe the honor?" "Monty," he sounded unusually polite. "I'd like to meet. I'd like to talk to you face to face. Are you free tonight?" "As a matter of fact," I answered. "Is something wrong?" "Nothing urgent," he assured me. "Just something to talk about. Why don't we have lunch at Oak Grill at 1 o'clock? Oak Grill was one of the most expensive restaurants in town, an interesting choice for a conversation. "Okay," I agreed. "I'll be there." At exactly 1 o'clock, I entered the restaurant. The interior was impressive. Dark wood, soft lighting, white tablecloths. Pierce was already waiting at a table in the corner. He stood up when he saw me and held out his hand to greet me. "Thanks for coming," he said as we sat down. "I'm intrigued," I admitted. "It's not every day my son-in-law invites me to a place like this." Pierce smiled slightly. "I ordered us some wine. I hope you don't mind the Chateau Margaux 2,000-year-old? "Excellent choice," I nodded. The wine was at least $500 a bottle. Pierce was clearly trying to impress. The waiter brought the wine and took our order. When he left, Pierce finally got to the point. "Monty, I wanted to talk to you about your decision to sell the house." "That's right." I sipped my wine. "What exactly are you interested in?" "Honestly, I'm wondering if you really want to move or if it's just part of a demonstration." He chose the word carefully. I looked at him carefully. "Why do you care, Pierce?" He sighed. "Because I feel responsible. My words in the park, they were inappropriate and cruel. I don't want you to make important decisions driven by a desire to prove something to me." "Interesting." I leaned back in my chair. "What's changed? Why the sudden concern?" Pierce paused, searching for words. "After dinner at your place, I did a lot of thinking. And I talked to Audrey. We both realized what we'd done was wrong. I was an arrogant snob, and Audrey, well, she didn't stand up for you when she should have." "And now you feel guilty," I stated. "Yes," he admitted honestly. "But it's more than that. I underestimated you, Monty. Both as a person and as financially sound. That's it." Pierce was impressed with my financial situation. And that changed your opinion of me? I asked bluntly. Pierce was embarrassed. It sounds awful when you put it like that, but in part, yes. I'm used to judging people by their appearance and lifestyle. It's an occupational deformity of a financier. And when I saw you in the park, you saw an old man in shabby clothes and you drew conclusions, I finished for him. Yes, he lowered his eyes. And I was wrong. Not only are you financially secure, but you have a dignity that a lot of people lack, including me. The waiter brought appetizers, and we paused our conversation for a while. When he left, I decided to be honest. You know, Pierce, it wasn't so much what you said that hurt me as the fact that Audrey didn't say it, and the fact that you both dismissed my feelings so easily for the sake of some pictures. I understand, he nodded, and I'm really sorry. We both want to make things right. How? I asked. Well, for starters, I'd like you to reconsider selling the house. Unless, of course, you didn't make it of your own free will, I wondered. Did I really want to move? Or was this just a way to show Pierce and Audrey that I could live on their level? I'll think about it, I finally said. But I can't promise I'll change my mind. Fair enough, Pierce agreed. One more thing. Audrey and I would like to organize a new family photo shoot. This time without the stupid conditions and with you at the center of the composition. I grinned. Are you trying to make it up to me? Partly, he admitted. But it's also a way to start over, on the right foot. We continued our lunch, talking about more neutral topics. Pierce asked me about my career as an engineer, about the projects I'd managed. For the first time in all the years we'd known each other, he showed genuine interest in my life. As we were saying goodbye as we left the restaurant, Pierce said, You know, Monty, I never thought I'd say this, but I could learn a lot from you. It's never too late to start learning, Pierce, I replied with a smile. When I got home, I found Evelyn waiting for me on the porch. Grandpa! She rushed toward me. I called, but you didn't answer, so I thought I'd wait. I'm sorry, baby, I hugged her. I was at lunch with your father. Dad? She raised her eyebrows in surprise. Did he apologize? Something like that, I smiled, opening the door. Come in and tell me how you're doing. We settled in the living room and I made hot chocolate, Evelyn's favorite drink. So, why did you want to see me? I asked, handing her a cup. Grandpa, I wanted to talk to you about your move, she said seriously. Are you really going to sell our house? Our house? I asked with a smile. Well, yeah, she shrugged. I know it's technically yours, but I've always thought of it as mine, too. My mom grew up here and I've spent so much time here. I looked at my granddaughter carefully. Is it that important to you that I stay? Yes, she nodded. I love this house, and I'm used to you living here. I can come over after school and we can do homework or play board games together. It's going to be different in your new house. But I'll still be the same grandpa, I said. It doesn't matter where I live. I know, she sighed, but it'll still be weird. Besides, she hesitated. What? I encouraged her. You're only doing this to prove something to Daddy, aren't you? She looked me straight in the eye. To show you're not an old beggar? Wise beyond her years, my granddaughter. Partly, I answered honestly. But I also thought that the change would be good for me. A new place, new people, a new life. And what if you don't like it? She asked. What if you miss your old home? Then I can always go back, I smiled. Or buy another house. Life is full of possibilities, Evelyn. She twirled the cup thoughtfully in her hands. You know, Grandpa, I was so proud of you at that dinner. You looked so cool. And the house is amazing. But most importantly, you made Daddy bite his tongue. She smiled triumphantly. He talks about you differently now. Oh, yeah? I raised an eyebrow. What does he say? That he underestimated you. That you're actually... She paused, searching for words. A financially prosperous and shrewd man. His words, not mine. I laughed. Typical Pierce, judging people by their bank account. But isn't that what you wanted? Evelyn asked. So he could see that you weren't a poor old man. Not exactly, I shook my head. I wanted him to realize that you can't judge a man by his looks, that dignity and respect are not measured by money or clothes. Did he understand? I hope he did, I answered. People change slowly, Evelyn, especially people like your father. She nodded. And my mom's really worried. She cried, you know, said she was a terrible daughter for not standing up for you. I'll talk to her, I promised. I don't want her to torture herself like that. Will you stay? Evelyn asked hopefully. In this house? I haven't decided yet, I said honestly, but I promise to think about it. She finished her chocolate and set the cup down. By the way, did Dad tell you about the new photo shoot? Yeah, he did, I nodded. It was my idea, she said proudly. I told him that if he wanted to make it up to me, he should organize a new shoot. And this time, you should be the main star. I laughed. The main star? I'm not sure I want that. Not in that way, she said. Just so everyone knows you're an important part of the family. The most important. Thank you, baby. I was touched by her concern. You're the best granddaughter anyone could ever dream of. After Evelyn left, I sat in the chair for a long time, thinking about the future. Was it worth selling a house that held so many memories? Did I really need a new apartment in a trendy neighborhood? Or was it just to prove something to Pierce and Audrey? The next day, Audrey called. Her voice was strained. Dad, do you mind if I come over? Sure, honey, I answered. I'll be waiting. An hour later, she was sitting in my living room, nervously fiddling with her teacup. Finally, she made up her mind. Dad, I have to apologize. What happened in the park? It was unforgivable. I should have stood up for you. Audrey, I said softly, it's okay. I don't hold it against you. But you should, she exclaimed. I did a terrible thing. I let Pierce insult you and even supported him by asking you to leave. What daughter does that? The kind that gets caught between two fires, I answered. Between her husband and her father. I understand, Audrey. But that's no excuse, she shook her head. I'm so used to pleasing Pierce, his ambition, his idea of the right life. And along the way, I forgot about what's really important. Like what? I asked. Respect, family. Appearance isn't the most important thing, she looked me in the eye. You always taught me that, and I forgot. We all forget important things sometimes, I said. It's important to remember in time. Pierce said that you had lunch together, she began carefully, and that he suggested a new photo shoot. Yes, I nodded. That's a good idea. Really? She looked surprised. I thought you'd say no. Why would I turn down the opportunity to spend time with my family? I smiled. Especially if they don't ask me to leave this time. Audrey lowered her eyes guiltily. I'll never forgive myself for this. This has to stop, I said sternly. I've forgiven you, Audrey. Now it's your turn to forgive yourself. I don't know if I can, she said quietly. You can, I said confidently. You're as strong as your mother. Iris never held grudges either. Audrey smiled weakly. I miss her. Every day. Me too. I nodded. But you know what she would say now? Stop souring and move on. She was always practical. Audrey laughed through her tears. Yeah, that's definitely in her spirit. We talked some more, and I could see the weight of guilt slowly lifting off her shoulders. Before she left, she asked, Dad, do you really want to sell the house? Or was that, for effect? I thought for a moment. You know, at first it was really part of the plan, to show that I could afford to live the way you and Pierce do. But then I started to think that a change might be good for me. And now? She looked at me carefully. I'm not sure now, I answered honestly. Evelyn convinced me to stay yesterday. She's very attached to this house. We all are, Audrey said quietly. But it's your decision, Dad, and whatever you choose, we'll support you. After she left, I thought about my decision again. Should I sell the house or stay? What would be best for me and my relationship with my family? A few days later, a new photo shoot took place. This time it took place in my renovated house and garden. The photographer, not Noah, but another older and less pretentious photographer, was enthusiastic about the interior and the lighting. "It's a great place to shoot, Mr. Thornton," he said. "Especially that wall of family photos. It makes a great backdrop." I put on a new suit, but I didn't go overboard on the formality. Comfortable pants, a simple shirt, a cashmere sweater, elegant but not pompous. Pierce also dressed simpler than usual, jeans and a pullover instead of a suit. Audrey chose a simple dress, and Evelyn wore her favorite t-shirt with a band I'd never heard of. "Is everyone ready?" the photographer asked. "Let's start with a general shot by the fireplace." We made ourselves comfortable on the couch and in the armchairs. The atmosphere was very different than in the park, relaxed, warm, truly family-oriented. "Great!" exclaimed the photographer after a few shots. "Now, maybe a few photos in the garden? The weather is beautiful." We went out into the garden where Keith had created a real miracle. Flowering bushes, well-maintained paths, a small fountain. The place was perfect for family photos. "Monty, stand in the center," the photographer suggested. "Family around you." Pierce and Audrey flanked me, Evelyn in front of us. We all smiled, but not tensely, as for a formal portrait, but genuinely, like people who are comfortable with each other. After the shoot, we stayed in the garden enjoying the warm day. Pierce helped the photographer assemble the equipment. Audrey brought lemonade from home, and Evelyn sat next to me on the garden bench. "How's it going, Grandpa?" she asked. "Better than last time?" "Much better," I smiled. "Even your father looks relaxed." "He's changed, you know," she said seriously. "After that dinner, less about status and image, and more about how I'm doing in school." "Glad to hear it," I nodded. "People can change if you give them a chance." Pierce came over to us. "What are you whispering about?" "About how you've changed," Evelyn said bluntly. Pierce was embarrassed. "Really? What's the verdict?" "For the better," she said. "So far." We all laughed. Audrey joined us with a tray of glasses of lemonade. "The photographer said he'd send the pictures in a few days," she said. "He thinks it turned out very well." "I'm sure it did," I nodded. "It was real this time." Pierce looked at me. "Monty, I wanted to ask, have you made up your mind about the house?" I looked around the garden, the house, my family. There were so many memories here, so much history. And despite all the changes in the interior, it was still the home Iris and I had made together. "Yes," I finally answered. "I'm staying." Evelyn shrieked with joy and hugged me. "Really? You're not moving?" "Really," I confirmed. "I called the realtor yesterday and turned down the apartment. This house, it means more to me than I thought it would." "I'm so glad," Audrey said sincerely. "Although a new apartment would have been lovely." "Maybe," I agreed. "But this is my home. This is where my memories of Iris live, of your childhood. This is where Evelyn took her first steps." "And she broke your favorite vase," Audrey added with a smile. "That too," I laughed. "All those memories are a part of me. I'm not ready to part with them." "But you'll keep the new furniture and everything else?" Pierce asked. "Sure," I nodded. "I like change, just not as drastic as moving." We sat in the garden until sunset, talking about the past and the future, about plans and dreams. For the first time in a long time, I felt a real connection with my daughter and even my son-in-law. Evelyn was glowing with happiness seeing us finally finding common ground. As they left, Pierce lingered at the door. "You know, Monty, I've learned a lot from you these past weeks." "Like what?" I asked. "That appearances can be deceiving, that a strong personality can hide behind an inconspicuous shell, and that true family values have nothing to do with image or status." "Important lessons," I nodded. "Thank you for teaching them," he said sincerely. "Even if the methods were unconventional. I smiled. Sometimes it takes a little performance to get an important point across. After they left, I sat down in my favorite chair by the fireplace. On the table next to it was a picture of Iris, the only thing I hadn't changed during the renovation. "Well, darling," I said, looking at her smiling face, "I almost sold our house out of wounded pride, but everything worked out for the best in the end. The family is back together, and even Pierce seems to respect me." I could almost hear her laughing and saying, "I told you you gave up too soon, Monty. Now look at you, back on track." And it was true. Thanks to the unpleasant incident in the park and the events that followed, I felt alive again. I had renewed my home, renewed my closet, but most importantly, renewed my relationship with my family and my attitude toward myself. When the photos arrived a week later, I looked at them with pleasure. They were strikingly different from the ones Pierce had planned for his office. There was no tension, no strain, just genuine smiles and real emotion. They weren't perfect glossy shots to show off status, but real family photos capturing real moments. One of them, where we were all sitting in the garden laughing at something Evelyn had said, I framed and hung next to Iris's picture. Two eras of my life, bound together by love and family ties. I realized I didn't need a luxurious apartment or expensive things to prove my worth. My home, updated but still holding our family's history, was exactly where I wanted to be. And my family, despite all our disagreements and mistakes, was my greatest asset.